Welcome to Rooted Within with Lili and Dan, a podcast that shines a spotlight on positive change makers sharing their stories of legacy, inspiration, and impact.
Hi, Dan.
You were waiting to
I was
do
so waiting
that.
because you've been getting in before me, so I got in there.
Welcome to another
Welcome.
edition of Rooted Within.
How are you?
I'm very good, actually. I've just had a coffee, so give me 10
I
minutes.
know you're gonna be
and it's
zinging.
really going to be kicking. It's probably about the 15th of the day.
Brilliant. So that means you're going to have some great questions for our guest today.
Yeah, we are. So we have in our studio today Rucha. Did I get that right?
Yes,
I
you
did.
You
There we
did.
go.
Well done.
Yeah, I was like sweating because I normally get names wrong. Yeah,
Right.
welcome.
Thank you for having me here, guys. I'm very excited.
It's so great to have you. You were recommended by one of our previous guests, I
Yes.
believe.
Yes,
Yeah.
Nikki Steele.
Nikki Steele, yeah, she came in. She was talking about.
Oh,
It was a great conversation.
Everything.
All
We
to
had
do with
such
having children and
fertility,
everything.
fertility, and the journey of a woman, and what defines a woman, and how fertility is so connected
Yeah.
to what it is to be female.
She's also amazing with the whole postnatal depression.
Oh, she's
piece.
amazing.
She's amazing.
Amazing. We had such a great conversation. Like, it was just wonderful. Like, we went on so many different tangents.
So maybe we'll go on some tangents today. So
Yeah.
we always begin with letting our guests introduce themselves and telling us a little bit about themselves and I guess where they came from and how they get to where they are now.
Thank you. So I'm Rucha. I am a mom of two. Lived in Dubai for about 11 years now. Before this, I was working as a talent manager in Mumbai, in India. And I worked with some big names in Bollywood and cricket.
We're going to pause for a second then. So you were working in Mumbai as a talent manager because
Yes.
that's like the epicenter of, I guess, like the sub-Indian continent's like talent industry.
Yeah.
Who were the people you were working with?
So I managed this Bollywood actress called Sonakshi Sinha.
Okay.
Worked with Yuvraj Singh, who's a cricketer. There was
Cricketers are
Dinesh
like
how
Shah.
big are
gods.
these people?
They are.
Huge.
They are. They're trendsetters. They're like gods.
Yeah.
They're worshipped.
Especially from the world of cricket. Like, they are idols.
I got World Cup final tickets for free, as many as I wanted, in 2011.
And where was the World Cup final held?
In Mumbai.
Amazing.
And India was in it.
Okay, wow.
It was
Epic.
Yes, it was epic, and it was like, wow, I'm powerful right now. I only realize that now when I look back,
Yeah.
but that was just life, you know.
Did you always want to be in talent? How did you end up in that?
I actually never had a plan for life. Things just kept getting thrown at me. One of my best friend from school is a tennis player, Sania Mirza. She is India's only women tennis player who has been on the WTA circuit.
Wow.
And I traveled with her for a year on the WTA circuit between my undergrad and master's. And I was having a conversation with her one day after university, after my master's in Manchester, and she said,
It's a great city, by the way, just putting it out there.
I've also lived in Oxford after, and I'm a little bit biased towards the South.
What? Okay, we're going to have a conversation after this, but carry on.
Controversial. And she said, how about you try talent management? And I said, sure. And that's where it came from. And I worked there for about 2.5 or 3 years. Absolutely loved it. It was epic. I learned so much. I was living alone. And it was the best time. Making money, which was the best thing
We
ever.
all like making a bit of money.
What were some of the key things that you learned during that? Because I was a talent manager myself
Oh,
previously.
you were.
Like, it's a lot. Like, you learn so many skills.
Hustle.
Negotiation, hustle is the
Hustle.
biggest one.
I think nothing can teach you hustle like being a talent manager. Negotiation, deals. I don't know how it will be
Politics.
now. Because yes,
Politics is a
for
big
sure.
one.
But politics is everywhere, though, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah,
You know.
yeah.
I think I was very lucky. I had the best boss.
Okay.
It was very hard when I moved to Dubai because to find a boss like him, it's not easy, and he really taught me a lot.
So how did you get to Dubai? What was that journey?
My husband was my best friend from university. We
Okay.
met in undergrad in Lancaster, actually. believe it or
Okay.
not. And he is born and raised in Dubai.
Yeah.
And he lived here and fell in love and decided that I'm going to get married. Indian girl, mom said, if you're going to date this guy, you have to get married.
Yeah.
So I said, okay. and moved to Dubai without thinking how important my job is, which I only realized much later when I saw a therapist, how important it was for me and what a big part of my identity.
And that was the
management
talent
was.
management.
Yes.
And why was it such a big part of your identity?
Because, you know, in India, growing up, you're somebody's daughter or somebody's friend or somebody's sister. You're never yourself, except to maybe your friends
Very
from
interesting.
school.
Yeah.
And then when I started working, I was Rucha, and people knew me because I
Of
was
you.
doing something of, people knew me for me. And that was amazing for me, you know. And which is what I realized much later, and I realized how big this whole identity piece is for me and
Yeah.
why I was feeling the way I was much later after having kids.
Yeah.
So you
No, it
moved to
makes sense.
Dubai. Well, why didn't you continue talent management when you came to Dubai?
10 years ago, well, 11 years ago when I moved to Dubai, talent management was very different.
Mm-hmm.
There was no social
Well,
media.
Dan can
Yeah, very
attest to
different, very
that.
basic.
Very basic. It was very Lebanese
True,
controlled. And Dubai was a shock for me when I moved here. I've had people when I moved in tell me that I went for interviews. They said, you're not going to be able to get paid as much as your colleague who is British
Because they said nationality.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
on my face. And I
Yeah.
walked out of those
Wow.
interviews crying to my husband,
Wow.
saying, I've actually worked as a senior manager, proved myself for so many years, and I'm back at not being able to get a basic job because
Yeah.
I'm Indian.
Yeah.
And even though I've lived in England for about 7 years,
Well, you're back to not
Doesn't-
being able to be seen for who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I luckily got through. I got a job as at an advertising agency, a boutique agency.
Okay.
And they were really lovely. I loved working there, but that was only for about 2 years until I got pregnant with my first one, and my life absolutely changed after that.
So how did your life change with that pregnancy?
My pregnancy was actually great. It was
Okay.
perfectly normal. I was going to come back and go back to work 3 months after, just a 3 or a 6 month maternity leave. They were very flexible. It wasn't paid, but she said, whenever you want to come back, we're here. And then when my daughter was born, the doctors waited too long for the birth, and she passed. They tried to do a natural birth, and she got really stressed in there, passed meconium in the womb and inhaled it. She didn't get oxygen at the right time.
Okay.
She was born sick. They never told us that.
Oh, shit.
And she didn't cry at birth, which at that point, after being in labor for over 24 hours, this was in India, I was so tired when they did an emergency C-section that I didn't even notice if she cried or not.
Yeah.
And she hadn't cried.
Because most babies cry.
They are
you have to
supposed-
You
cry.
see it in the movies, right? They always
that.
slap the bum to get the
Yeah.
tears, you know, and
They
then
are
the
supposed
babies
to
are out.
cry, and I think she had oxygen asphyxiation. She didn't get oxygen when she needed it, and she kept crying, and she just kept crying. And as a mom, they say this instinct kicks in, and somehow I knew something was not right. I took her home, and she just kept crying for like days. And on the 8th day, she actually cried all night.
So she didn't cry when she was born, but then after that, literally
she was just
relentless
crying
crying.
the whole time, and she would not sleep as a newborn. It was absolutely the worst time of my life
Yeah.
because I didn't know what I was doing wrong.
Because I guess at that time
And
you
that's the
you
thing,
start,
you thought you were doing something
yeah,
wrong.
you
That's it.
question your abilities as a mother. You're like, okay, well, why is this happening?
Yep, and we just took her to an emergency, and they said nothing's wrong with her. You can take her back. She just has some colic. And I come back home, and on the 9th day, the exact same thing happened. And this time, I went in, and I was like, and my mom started crying. My sister was crying. Everybody at home at like 2 o'clock in the morning was just crying because this baby won't stop crying all night. And then I
guess fear kicks in at that point.
absolutely
There's
fear,
something wrong.
helplessness, anxiety,
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
And we took her in, and I said to the hospital, I was like, until you figure out why she's crying and what is going on with her, I'm not taking her home. He said, ma'am, we can't keep her like that. And I was like, you know what? I know some people high up in the management, and I'm going to call the doctors at 2 o'clock in the morning and kick a big fuss if you don't keep her. They kept her in, and the next morning at 9 o'clock, my husband was not with me in this whole time because he had flown back to Dubai for work. I was with my mom and dad, And
Was he aware of what was happening? I'm assuming.
he probably just thought that
You
kids
were
cry,
overreacting.
and I was just,
Just being overly cautious,
yeah,
maybe.
emotional and
Yeah.
stressed and
Yeah,
all
and
of
tired.
that. Yeah. And the doctor called me in at 9 o'clock the next morning. She was in hospital at 2 a.m. and at 9 or half 9 in the morning, after waiting for like what seemed like hours, they called me in and they said, the doctor said, she asks the nurse, is this the seizure baby's mother? And I was like, first of all, she has a name, and what is seizure? What
Yeah,
do you
well, hang on,
wanna-
what just happened?
And then she says, so I just want to tell you that this child has had seizures all night, multiple seizures all night, and we don't know if she'll make it through.
Oh my God.
And can you call your husband? And I called my husband in Dubai, and I said, you have to take the next flight
Yeah.
because this is what the doctor says. And he flew in immediately, and what followed was a nightmare. She was in NICU for 3 months.
Continues having
And
seizures.
she was having seizures.
For 3 months.
They were able to control them, but there was a lot of complications after that, which she was on medication for a year.
Yeah.
She was on 12 different types of medication. I still have the calendar, every hour we were giving her something.
And this is a direct result of the fact that she never had the oxygen
Yeah.
during the time of delivery. And nobody up until this point had ever diagnosed that as the case.
So meconium is the first poo that they pass out, and it's toxic. It's black. All
Okay.
babies do it, and they're supposed to pass it when they come out and not in the womb. And she had passed it in the womb
Okay.
and inhaled it.
So literally they inhaled
So they're
toxins,
poison.
essentially. Poisoned.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there was,
But that's extremely rare, I'm assuming.
it happens, and
Okay.
I know somebody who it happened to, and the baby didn't make it.
Oh, wow, I've never
So-
heard of this.
And so it was, she was in ICU for 3 months, NICU for 3 months. It is extremely difficult to be a new mother and have a child in an ICU with all those pipes on them.
Yeah.
And just nobody told me anything about breastfeeding. It was just literally like, here's your child.
Yeah,
and
now go.
Feed her. And it's supposed to come to you instinctively as a mother to be able to hold a child, to be able to feed a child, but it didn't to me.
Yeah.
I wanted somebody to teach me. And so obviously my whole plan of coming back to work, and after that was just this whole series of, we don't know if she will walk normally, we don't know if she will talk, we don't know what the seizures have done.
I'm just trying to process this because obviously when you're pregnant, you have all these dreams and aspirations. I guess you paint a picture
Yeah.
of what
And it's all
what motherhood and what a
gone.
future would look like, and then all of a sudden that's completely gone, different.
A lot of my friends were pregnant around the same time,
Yeah.
and I would see pictures of, because in 2014 Instagram was there and Facebook
Yeah.
was there,
Yeah.
and there was pictures of
Healthy
newborn
babies.
photo shoots
Yeah.
and parties of people posting with balloons, and here I was sitting in front of the NICU, being able to hold my child for 1 hour a day,
but wondering whether she'll
and
make it.
wondering what. And in all of this, my husband decided to apply for an MBA while sitting outside an NICU because that was his plan all along.
Yeah.
He was applying for it. He didn't know that he'd have to.
Oh, okay.
So he was working outside the NICU, and I just wait there, waiting for them to call me when I need to feed her, or
Wow.
And we did that for 3 months.
That must have been terrifying.
It was horrendous.
Well, it's
And
still raw, isn't
I
it?
know. Well, I'm not crying, which is huge.
Yeah.
But it's
the
okay
worst
if
part-
you
Sorry,
do.
I can't remember if you said that. How long ago was this?
9 years.
Okay.
And the worst part in all of this is that everybody expected me to know, as a mom, everything all along. It's like, you have to hold the child like this, and you have to, and nobody asked me, when I think about it,
Yeah.
how I felt.
Yeah.
Everybody was like, how's the child doing? Is she going to be okay? And the doctors kept saying, we don't know if she would make it. We don't know if she'll
They
walk.
would openly say that in front of a mother who's
Oh.
already traumatized
yeah.
without any bedside manner.
Let me tell you what they did this 2 years ago. I went back. My daughter is perfectly fine. She's healthy.
Thank God. Yeah.
She's amazing
Yeah.
little girl. And she was sick. We were in India visiting my parents 2 summers ago, and I took her back, unfortunately, to that hospital. It's
Okay.
the only hospital there. And one of the doctors who treated her was like, "This is the seizure baby. She's normal."
Oh no.
And my daughter was like, "What does that even mean?" And I explained, I mean, she knows that she's had seizures, and she
Yeah,
knows she
the
had them
history.
again when she was 4.
Again, as a direct result of
They
the
were not
condition.
related. We don't know why she had them. She's
Yeah.
not epileptic.
God, that
but
must have scared the hell out of you when
Yeah,
that
of
happened at the age of
course.
4, because
It's
you're
like
like,
history
oh no.
repeating.
Yeah.
it was. I have so many anxieties around health, and I've worked so much on it.
Do you still carry anxiety for it?
Yes.
Like, at what point? It'll never go away, will
I
it?
don't think it will ever go away, but I think that seeing somebody and having tools to deal with them helps.
Yeah.
Which is why I keep telling everybody you need to see a therapist, not because you're sick or you're mentally ill, but
No,
because
to equip
the
you.
clarity of thought and
Yeah.
the way you see things after seeing a therapist, you can't do it on your own.
I've
Very
always
true.
said, I
We
say
talked
it
about
over
it.
and over again, therapy is the best gift you can give yourself.
It was nobody. So when I flew back to Dubai, she was 5 months, 4.5 or 5 months old, and we flew back to Dubai. Everybody said, "Oh, you can't leave. You know, she's not well." And I said, "I'm just gonna go. I need to go. I need my doctors. I need my house, and I
Yeah.
just need to be
You
where
need
I
your
am.
life.
I
You
need my
need, you
life."
need normal.
It was the best decision I took
Yeah.
in my life, and honestly, she flourished in Dubai.
Yeah.
She was like a changed baby. She was so happy. We would go for all the classes, and she's perfectly healthy. And the doctor here, I've had a pediatrician since she was 9, Dr. Sapna Verma, and she is incredible. She sat down and listened to me cry in her office for 2 hours. Literally, which doctor sees you for that long?
Yeah.
Must have been 90 minutes. And then she said, "I think you need to see somebody." And up until that point, nobody had said that I need to see somebody.
Nobody
And
had actually asked how you
no.
were. Yeah. You
And the
mentioned.
first
And
question
you
she
didn't
asked-
think that you would
No.
need to see somebody
I
either,
didn't know.
because but you were so busy being a mom.
That's it.
Well, because your first instinct will be to protect your child and to do everything for your child, which means that you neglect yourself by
Yep.
default. Because
You don't realize, though.
Yeah, of course.
And she said, "I think you need to see some." First question she asked actually was, "How are you feeling?" And I was just like,
So, how did that feel then for someone to finally ask you how you're feeling?
I just started crying.
Yeah.
I was in tears.
It must be like an outpouring of emotion.
It was. And she said, "I think you need to see somebody." And much later, she said, "The minute I saw you, I knew you had postnatal depression.
Okay.
And I knew you had so much anxiety. And I'm so glad you saw
Yeah.
somebody." And seeing Dr. Rose Logan, I see Dr. And I say names like this because I feel like when I started looking, it was a challenge. I
Yeah.
did not find people that I liked or needed. And I now see Dr. I've been seeing her for 10 years, Dr. Rose Logan.
Yeah.
She's at the Free Spirit Collective, and she really turned things around for me in the best possible way.
And you couldn't find these people because they didn't exist, or it wasn't accessible, it wasn't talked about.
How do you know? I did not know a thing like postnatal depression
True.
exists.
Okay.
Yeah.
Remember,
We've had these conversations. This is why I asked
we were,
for the
yeah.
opinion.
It was. We did interview a lovely, lovely lady who pretty much shine a light on the fact that there are so many women around the world that suffered through postnatal depression on their own.
Yeah.
And one, A, not knowing that they're going through it, and B, even when they
The
were going
stigma.
through it, the stigma,
Yeah.
you know, they wouldn't talk about it. They, you know, wouldn't go there because it's like, how do I tell people that I'm not bonding with my child?
Yeah. It's that perception of failure.
With that perception of failure. So there were so many women that suffered in silence or genuinely just didn't know
I
because
used
it
to-
wasn't talked about.
I used to cry for hours just in the night, like just howling. And my mom, everybody said, "This is normal. You've just had a baby."
That was the other thing. That was
And
the
You
other
normalize
thing.
it.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
normal. That was another thing
because
that was
they
said.
don't know.
Because they also
They
didn't
don't know. And now I know that it's very common, but
Yeah.
it's not normal.
That's a very true point. It's common but not normal.
Mm.
Yeah.
And after that, when we moved countries, I followed my husband everywhere. We moved to England for a couple
Okay.
of years. My in-laws passed away, so we had to move back to Dubai. And the contrast between having my first and my second, because I knew better from my first, I had a village around me. I had lactation consultants, a doula, a midwife, plans, a pediatrician, a neonatologist at birth.
Yeah.
I had everyone around. I had a planned C-section,
Yeah.
and I had the best gynecologist
Yeah.
who stood with me like rock solid.
I guess because you learned so much through the traumatic experience of the first child, you would never want to repeat that ever again.
And you also
So
learn
you-
to ask for help.
Yes. Yes, I was just going to say that. I knew that I needed these people. I was able to breastfeed him for 2 years
Yeah.
out of choice. Would not be able to if I did not have a lactation consultant, because it's not easy. It's horrendous.
My sister suffered from it. She couldn't. It was really difficult.
I wouldn't be able to had I not gone to Dr. Delphine and been like crying in her office, but she made it easy. She gave me tips
Yeah.
to stick it out. And at every point, the reason that I was able to go through this, and I had appointments booked in with my therapist months before, because I was like, I'm going to get postnatal depression, and I know this, and I need it. And that was the best decision.
Yeah.
It was hard. Even the second time around, having a baby is so hard.
Yeah.
And you don't love it every day. You love the baby every day, but you don't love being a mom every day.
And that's interesting because that also, the conversation we've had with other people leads into, the fear of guilt. Like, people get guilty of why do they feel that way,
Because the society has so many expectations from a mother, not from a father, but from a
True.
mother. If my husband is a very involved father, and all the moms at school say he's such a good dad,
Yeah.
but he doesn't do half what I do, and nobody says I'm such a good mom. Nobody does.
It's an expectation.
Yeah, you have to
It's a
feed the
given.
baby what. You have to feed kids healthy. You have to make sure they don't want screen time. You have to love them every day. You have to love being a mom every day.
Yeah.
There are expectations.
And also as well the physical aspects of what you have to give them, especially in the first few months of birth.
Yeah.
But
You
this,
you're
this
sharing part of your body with them still.
but this has all led you to where you are today.
Well, I was being a mom for the 3 months, just kept going on between moving countries and moving back to Dubai, 2 children. My in-laws were sick. My mother-in-law had strokes, all in Dubai. It was intense. And then the pandemic happened.
Jesus, you couldn't catch a break, could you?
Yeah. that's
I didn't
really rough.
realize that. You're
Wow.
just living life, you
Yeah.
know?
But it's one hit after the other.
Yeah. And then in March 2021, I did an online workshop on going back to work after a maternity break. I mean, I had a long one, 7 years. And in that workshop, we did an exercise called Mapping Your Life, in which we had to draw 5 circles of our life. And she gave us some examples. She said work, hobbies. I very confidently went away and I wrote my 5 circles and I waited, and I was one of the last ones. I was not confident, and I wouldn't be like, oh, I'm going to go first. I was one of the last ones to go. And I realized that I was the only one in 12 moms who were on that workshop who didn't write anything about myself.
Wow.
My circles were husband, children, parents, friends, and community.
Yeah.
The community where I live, because it was a big part of of my life. And when I heard everybody's answers, and they had art and Pilates and work, and most of them had written me, as
Yeah.
in me, Rucha. I actually started crying when I gave my answers on that call with 12 strangers, because I realized how far down my own list I had gone. I was almost embarrassed.
Because you were putting yourself second to everybody else, and to
I didn't
everything
even
else.
think
You didn't even think about
she
it.
completely forgot about herself.
I
She
didn't think
exist.
of it.
Yeah.
And that day, I just sat and I cried, and my husband said, it's just an exercise. I said, actually, it's not about an exercise. When you ask me for my birthday where I want to go for a meal, I say where the kids want to go.
Yeah.
And because, Anika was so sick when she was born, I never left her. I was so possessive. I didn't realize she would go everywhere. We didn't have date nights.
Got you.
We didn't do anything. So when they said, where you want to go for your birthday, it would be where the kids want to go. What
Yeah.
music do you want to listen to
Whatever
in the
the
car?
kids want.
Whatever the kids or my husband wants.
Yeah.
What clothes do you want to wear? Just anything. I don't care. It had reached a point where that I said to him, I don't have anything that's me anymore, that's unique to
You've
me.
lost that
Well,
identity.
you didn't matter anymore.
I didn't matter to me anymore, clearly. And I don't know how I reached this point from being this fierce, young, independent woman who lived alone since she was 17,
Yeah.
did everything for herself.
That talent manager in the beginning
Yeah.
who would have been a fierce hustler, because you have to be in that industry. It's a
Absolutely.
completely different person.
What emotion did you feel when you had this realization?
Oh, I just cried. I was
But was it
so let down.
sorrow? Was it despair? Was it sadness? Was it anger?
Regret.
Regret?
I think it was just, I was just sad and really
Yeah.
upset with myself that I let
Yeah.
this happen. And the first thing that I did is book in with my therapist again. And I booked in sessions for personal training. And I went on this whole journey of healing myself, you know, and getting myself back on my list.
Yeah.
It took me 2 years of constantly stepping out of my comfort zone, networking events,
Oh, look at you here.
you know.
Yeah.
I'm very
First
And your
proud.
first
Podcast.
podcast.
I know, my first
Yeah.
podcast. Completely, constantly stepping out of my comfort zone. I went for networking events. My confidence was on the floor. I was
Yeah, I
like,
can imagine.
I actually parked in front of one of it and I called my husband and I said, I'm not going in. And he said, you have to go in. I don't care. I'm on the call with you. If you don't know what to say, stay on the call with me, but you're going in. And I went in and I was like, what am I going to say? What do I do? And that's what happened. They were like, so introduce yourself. I was like, I'm not going to say stay-at-home mom. What am I going to say? Like a stay-at-home mom? And I did. I felt like an absolute parasite, just not doing anything, feeding off my husband. But my therapist said something very interesting to me after that. She said, you have skills that others don't. You've been a mom to 2 kids.
Yeah.
And I never looked at it like that, you know?
And also that traumatic experience in the beginning, you've learned a lot from that experience.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot that we've been through as a mom, as a mother. And I slowly started realizing, I started going for these events and I was like, actually, I'm a mom and I want to do something with my life, but I don't know what. And I started saying that. And it just, you know, slowly started feeling better and easier to go out.
You're starting to get seen.
Yeah, as myself again.
Yeah.
And so when I went for one of the reason that Mom Identity Project happened is because, like we spoke about, what's your story?
Yeah.
There's a lady called Lama, and Lama Andari, she runs Aptaluna. Her 3-year-old was diagnosed with cancer, and she honestly owns her life. She raises awareness on pediatric cancer. She'd actually make an amazing guest for you. And I went for a talk, and she said, you know, all of us have a life story, and it's up to us what we make out of it.
Yeah. True.
And I walked out of it, and I went to my husband. I said, what a load of, I don't have a life story. And he was like, all of us have a life story, and it's just a question of you figuring out what yours is. Honestly, I thought about it for 2 weeks. I was like, I spoke about it to everybody I met. I was like, I don't have a life story. I don't have a life story. And somebody said you should start writing, you know, journaling, and it'll come to you. And I started journaling, and I was like, actually, I have a life
You
story.
do have a life story.
I was somebody, and I became a mom and completely lost my identity.
Yeah.
And I am going to help moms find their identities, rediscover themselves.
And that's what
again.
you're doing now.
Yes. So the Mom Identity Project is a community that supports moms and empowers them to rediscover their identities, find things that spark the joy in them.
Yeah.
And how
'Cause-
are you doing that?
So I initially, I'm going to be very honest, started off as an Instagram page. I was like, I'm just going to say my story. And I know all these other moms, and I'm going to talk about their successes, failures. Just honestly, you know, the most successful mom talking about imposter syndrome and how I would think she's the most confident, amazing person. And she was like, actually, I have imposter syndrome. Like,
So, because you don't see what goes on behind the facade.
So it started off as an Instagram page, and I was so embarrassed that I was becoming a content creator that I didn't even share this page with most of my friends. But it so happened that I woke up I posted the video on a weekend, and I woke up the next morning and I had about 1,300 views and 20 comments
Oh, wow.
in my inbox. And these were women, I had no idea who they were. They were all strangers saying, we feel exactly like this. Thank you for saying
How
it.
did that make you feel, that moment? When you
Scared.
open,
I'm going to be honest. I was like, what is going on?
Scared? Why?
Because now I felt responsible
Yeah.
for something. You know, it came with a huge
now
sense of
there's no
responsibility.
going back in the box.
And these women slowly wanted to know what they can do.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, now what am I going to do? You know, how am I going to help them? And this amazing, amazing woman came into my life, Sophie Thomas. She runs the Growth Pod. She is a career coach. She was a strategy consultant, and she gave it up to help women from idea to conceptualization. And she said, I'll work with you. And I was like, I can't afford you. She was like, you don't need to pay me.
Yeah.
I work for you. I work with you. And she's now helping me build a platform where we take women from the point that they've lost themselves and sort of help them through the journey of rediscovering themselves. So we're not a commercial entity. We are connectors and enablers. I will just connect the mums to whoever they need at whatever phase they are at.
I have a question. So obviously everyone's journey is different.
Yeah.
Everyone goes through a different experience, but many women face this issue or
Yes.
face a similar issue. It's not uncommon.
No, it's not. It's not uncommon, and nobody talks about it
So,
again.
yeah.
And
We've had this
It's
in
becoming a
many
bit of a theme,
conversations.
right?
Yeah, it's like people
It's a bit of
don't
a
want to
theme.
talk about something. But it's
But,
really interesting how now we are
especially
talking.
for women and women's issues.
Correct.
I think they might be embarrassed also.
Well, the word shame came coming up.
Yeah.
Mm.
The word shame.
And I think as stay-at-home moms, your confidence is already so low, you don't want to sound stupid. I didn't, for
Yeah.
sure. So I never actually said it. But it took a lot. And finally I reached a place where I was like, you know what, if I'm feeling like this, I'm sure there are so many others
Yeah, you
who are
can't be
feeling.
alone.
I can't. And that's exactly what happened. And so when I said, you know, I'm thinking of doing these networking events, somebody said, oh my God, there's so many networking events here already. And mom networking events, you're just going to get lost. And I said, actually, you see coffee mornings where you take your baby or your children, and moms are talking about all mom things, school pickups, and my child did this and this class and that. Or you go for these amazing networking events where you're talking about your amazing idea or your business or what work you do and introducing yourself
Yeah.
professionally.
Yeah.
But there's nothing in the middle for moms who can actually show up there and say, you know what, I'm a mom. I don't want to talk anything motherhood related right now. And I don't know what I want to do in my life. I'm figuring it out. There's no place like
And that's
that.
okay.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And also, it's not about making money or going back to work. It can be anything that sparks joy in you.
Yeah.
Or
And have that sense of purpose again.
Yeah.
You know, a purpose other than just, you know,
to feel
being a
fulfilled
mother.
again.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a place where you can come in and actually not introduce yourself, but
Yeah.
just talk to people and feel fulfilled.
Yeah.
And that's the community that I am
And are
trying
you
to
feeling
build.
fulfilled now?
Absolutely. And whenever I have doubts, the universe has a strange way of telling me that I am doing the right thing.
It's really true about the universe. It has a habit of doing that.
Very much so.
Thank you so much for sharing that story with us.
No,
Yeah.
thank you.
And glad to know that your daughter made it through and she's good and a successful life.
She is. She's well.
You can tell by the smile on your face right now. You're very proud and very happy.
I am.
Yeah. What's next with the project that you're working on?
I am hopefully this month we are working on our first ever in-person event.
Okay.
It's because I've gotten asked so many times when I'm going to do a first in-person meet. And I am launching this platform in the next 3 months.
Yeah.
And I'm
You
saying it out
excited?
here because I'm holding myself accountable.
You excited?
Do it. Make it happen.
Yes, I'm very excited. I have the best support system in place. So I want to tell women out there that you don't have to do it all alone. You actually don't have to do it alone at all. And there are so many amazing people out there who are waiting to support you. And at every stage in your life, ask for the support and it will be there.
Well,
I
you know,
think that is a very
It
beautiful
is.
way
It's
to wrap it
a
up.
great place to finish it.
Thank you so much, and we will share details on our socials about your event. So yeah, make sure you send them over to us.
I will.
Good luck with everything.
Good luck.
Hopefully we'll speak to you again soon.
Thank you for having me. I
Anytime.
did my first podcast.
Yeah, congrats. I hope we were good podcast hosts. We made you feel comfortable.
You did. You were amazing.
Oh, you've been a great guest. Thank you so much for joining us.
Welcome to Rooted Within with Lili and Dan, a podcast that shines a spotlight on positive change makers sharing their stories of legacy, inspiration, and impact.